I'm Sharon Brett Kelly, and I'm standing in the back paddock of Kay and Bruce McMahon's farm in Drury. In the background you can hear the sound of bulldozers and earth movers, and that's because they are surrounded nearly on three sides by subdivision. What used to be farms and farmhouses are subdivision. That's the sound of their kuni pigs right in front of me. Hello. They've got several animals on this farm, dozens of chooks. They can't stay here. They've been here for 25 years, but they don't want to stay here any longer because they don't want to see what was rolling farmland change into housing. So at some point they are going to sell up and move further south of Auckland. But their story is a story of really what's going on here in Drury in South Auckland, about the pressure on the land, the pressure to develop, and I suppose for some people living here, what it's like to have no power over what really goes on in your backyard. So today I'm going to find out more about how this place is changing, how it's going to be one day, not too far away, it's going to be a city with 60,000. That's a city the size of Napier. So I'm going to talk to a range of people because not everybody is against this. And I'm going to meet a developer who is already halfway through a major township. Now, Kay and Bruce don't want to talk to me on tape, but they're happy for me to take photos and to do this piece in front of the kuni pigs who are basking in the sun here. This place that used to be called Drury is part of Auckland's vast southern rural area. It's so special that the district has its own southern rural strategy, part of a larger blueprint for the city's future that will be published in May next year. But how do you stop the sprawl, preserve that rural way of life and make way for houses, shops, schools and industry? And really, isn't it all too late? Well, I'm on the road with Drury born and bred Andy Baker, who is the Franklin Ward councillor.
Oh, it's incredible. It is, as you said, it's the transition of farmland and 10-acre blocks into, it's going to be high density urban living.
It's what has been talked about for years and years and years, the sprawl or the danger of the sprawl, yep. Really. And the predictions are that, within 20 years, 100,000 more people will be living in this area of Auckland, which comes under the Southern Rural Strategy.
Yep.
Tell me about this area.
The southern sort of area that's included in the strategy really stems from almost coast to coast, so east coast to west coast. It'll be Beachlands, Maraetai in the east, all the way out to Waiuku in the west, and it's an incredible change. In a way, we're paying the price for being in the heart of the Golden Triangle between Auckland, Tauranga and Waikato, and particularly in Drury. It's right smack bang in the middle of it. It's incredibly strategic in terms of where it is, and my little home village that I've lived in for nearly 60 years is
being bowled over really as we speak.
Oh, absolutely right. I mean, there are hills that I've grown up with. I've lived in my current house for 20 years, and there are hills that I've driven past every day that no longer exist. They're a big brown flat area, been flattened even more by the minute.
People have to live somewhere. Yep. That's the argument, right? But what we're talking about, the Southern Rural Strategy and public submissions on that have just closed. Yep. What are people saying? Because it seems like everyone's got an opinion about what should happen here.
They do. There's people who don't want to see development. They want their lives to be left alone. Contrary to that is, as we've seen here in Drury, there's been some people who have made a lot of money out of having the opportunity to sell their little piece of paradise to developers. And we are talking many, many, many millions of dollars. I know old neighbours of mine who just said, we're just going to go to the beach and the wife will keep working remotely and I'm going to buy a yacht and take up golf. How good for them.
It's the New Zealand dream, but this is upsetting a lot of people though.
Oh, it is.
And so what's the idea of the Southern Rural Strategy?
It's two things. It's to identify how, when, where we develop. We've done a lot of stuff in the past where we've created dormitory suburbs. That means that people have to travel long distances between where they work and where they live. And so what we're trying to do here with the strategy in the south is actually make it that we're looking in a holistic way of how people can live and work and play without having to drive for miles.
Because the Southern Motorway isn't that far away, and
No.
that's the bane of people's lives in
Yeah.
so many ways. But shall we keep going?
Yeah.
As we drive around, we'll talk more about who pays for all this, the connecting roads, the pipes, etc. Is it the developer or ratepayers? And who is really in charge? Because the council's already lost one big case against developers.
Off to your
Oh,
left
yeah.
there. So that, a few months ago, that was a paddock and a rolling hill. They've actually taken a lot off.
And what are we looking at now? A couple of big bulldozers
Yeah.
turning it into a subdivision?
Turning it into a subdivision. So they're going to be flattening it out, just recontouring it, and that'll be full of houses.
Also, Andy, what we're looking at here is a sign that this is on land that's right in front of this subdivision that's going on. It says private sale, PBN, I don't know what that means.
Price by negotiation.
Price by negotiation, phone/text at the phone number, no agents.
Yeah.
Homemade sign making it very clear that they want to do it themselves.
Yeah, they want to do it themselves. They don't want an agent clipping the ticket. They know that at some stage someone's going to come to them and say, we want to buy your property.
It's a pretty good example of old Drury and new Drury, right?
Yeah, it is. And across the road, directly across the road, it used to be Charlie's Strawberry Farm. It was famous. You go in there into that shed and you'd pick yourself up a couple of punnets of strawberries. And
What is it now?
it's now just someone's shed.
Oh, okay. And the land around it?
The land around it is just cropped. People that who own some land just in the back here, they bought it, they sort of land banked it. It's used for fodder crops for animals.
Is that a waste of good land or?
Nah, you can't compare the soils here with Pukekari soils. These are very clay-based soils. They're not fantastic. They're not great for growing.
So we've stopped at a temporary stop sign because on our right is more subdivision going on?
Yeah,
more
so
development?
this is a development by a crowd called Oyster Capital, and I stand to be corrected, but my understanding is Fletcher Living are going to be doing big housing development here. This is also going to be, they're creating a new road to connect through to the back of Papakura to just give Great South Road some redundancy.
Where does all the money come from for this infrastructure?
I'd imagine debt funded from overseas, a lot of these developers.
That's funding for actual developments, but what about the infrastructure that's needed to support these developments? Who pays for that?
That's a huge issue for us, and so obviously developers pay development contributions, and so Drury Council has undertaken a review of our development contributions, and Drury developers are having to pay more than elsewhere, and that's to cover the cost of what council needs to do, and government are contributing to this growth, and that's a huge issue for us. That is a massive issue, and so part of the overall development strategy that council has created, and the part that the southern strategies it fits into, is trying to sequence when council can afford to do their bit, and in Drury, that was sort of indicated through our last development strategy. However, the three big players here got together and put in plan changes. Council were against that, and the commissioners just said, no, council, it's the ability of you to fund or not, it's not an issue for us. They granted the plan changes, and hence this work's happening, and we're having to play catch up.
And that makes me wonder, who's in control here?
Oh, it's certainly not council.
We've arrived now at Oranga, an ambitious billion-dollar project designed to one day be a standalone township. But right now, there are lots of houses and not much else.
This development is ahead of the game in terms of houses and things. It was really the first residential development to go ahead in Drury.
I don't want to sound like a snob, but I kind of think there's a whole heap of houses plonked in the middle of nowhere. I don't see any town halls, any even dairies.
No.
So is that a good example of what's happening here?
Yeah, it is, and this is where we've got to make sure that we hold developers to account. And so this whole area here is sort of, meant to be shops and community plaza.
Well, what's
and
happening?
It hasn't, yeah.
No.
So there's a cafe that had closed.
But can't you compel developers to put up all the amenities that should come with a good village or small township?
You should be able to. I wish we could.
Charles, what have we got here? Hey.
Just as we pull in, we spot the developer, Charles Ma.
Nice
to meet you.
A podcast. We're talking about Drury. Would you be happy to
Can I
have
have a quick chat with you?
Happy to.
Oh, fantastic. You hold that, Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, first of all, you are?
I am the founder of Oranga and Made Group, which is I guess I've started here 11 years ago to begin a new town.
Right. Tell me about this new town.
Well, I think a lot of places are not able to create a sense of energy in the fringes. What you find is that most places, they end up becoming dormitory places or places that are very exclusive and elitist. What I was encouraged by was one of the communities that actually the New Zealand government did, the Hobsonville Point, which showed that actually it is possible to create something pretty cool and pretty amazing at the edge of town. And so from there I decided, well, instead of using government funding, could I do it from a private sector? And I spent the last 11 years proving that you can.
So where's the money come from then?
80% of it comes from the local investors, New Zealanders, and then 20% international. And most of them are all high net worth individuals. So we're trying to keep it patient in terms of our capital base rather than high turnovers and highly leveraged.
How much does something like this cost? How much does it cost to turn what used to be farmland into a little township?
I think we probably invested altogether no less than $500 million. Yeah.
And you've got a long way to go. I mean, what's the goal? How many houses?
So we initially planned for 2,000, but I think we're striking 3,000 because there's a sense of people wanting to live more denser, and the people want to be in this place, and they can't afford bigger land. So we've decided to create things a bit more smarter, a bit more tighter, but they have a campus to play in.
You've got some houses built here, more to come.
So we have approximately around 500 homes finished and around another 120 of a retirement home villa finished as well. We have, in terms of land development, probably approximately 1,500 finished in terms of sections. And so we're pretty much halfway through, at least. Yeah.
What about everything else? I mean, like we're standing in what's called the village centre, aren't we?
Yes.
Is this the little
village hub? Let's
village
call it
hub.
The piazza.
The piazza. Okay, that's kind of
a very mini cute one.
A mini cute one, yeah. But no shops here, no cafes, no town hall, no.
So the truth is, when you're doing new developments, you can't justify a lot of commercial upfront, especially in this market where discretionary funding is almost dropped to nothing. We've actually started with a container cafe. We had a container cafe operating for the last 2 or 3 years, and then we decided now we're ready to mature it. So we spent the last year turning that into a glass house with performance art centers as well as a storage center, and now we're going to put another glass house over here to make a communal dining kind of experience as well as yoga studios and everything. Now, I am also working on the Shearwater Nakaroa Town Centre. That's a full-blown supermarket, full-blown healthcare centre, gym and swimming pool, and as well as...
How far away is that?
That's around, if you're walking, you're probably around, let's just say 15 minutes walk.
Okay, so that's what, being built now?
We are aiming to start earthworks by February.
Right.
We're just working through some pre-commitments of some tenants. It's hard because some of the big anchors we want to get in there. But that will be a Easily $500 million project again. Yeah.
And is council supportive? Are you getting the right kind of backing, do you feel?
Well, I think everybody's struggling a little bit. And so I try my best to meet the needs of still not settling on a vision, but understanding that I'm not going to get much out of the support financially that I was hoping for. But maybe there's I think from our point of view, we're willing to take a leap of faith, and hopefully people were willing to support us along the way later down the track. That's the way for it.
What do you mean by that? So were you hoping for some council financial support?
Well, even as you know, after recent years, development contributions hiked so much, and for people like us that's built all the infrastructure already, it's really hard for us to carry that much of additional contribution fees again when you're dealing with 400 homes additional there.
You're going to make a lot of money from this, though, aren't you?
Well, I hope so. In time, I think one thing I always tell my investors, actually, this question, because it's that I said, look, there's a difference between people that makes profit and people that make wealth. Profit, you get it in 5 years. You can see it 3 and 5 years. Okay, you get your profit, you turn your project over, you're done, you're in and out. But you really want to build wealth, you got to invest into a soul properly, and it's going to be 10 years plus before you get something back.
You know, there's a lot of talk, as you know, about the encroachment of housing development onto
farmland.
Farmland,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
It's been going on for years, hasn't it?
Well, I think the best way I see it is that we have a lot of land actually in New Zealand. What we don't have are places that we can do communities well, because extending infrastructure is extremely expensive. And so my plan is that it's not so much me taking up more farmland, but rather creating more and more compacted and good places where they are adjacent to farmland so they both can coexist in a beautiful dance.
But Charles Marr's beautiful dance has gone awry in the past. His 2,000-home Eden Rotokauri development in Hamilton is on hold after the company behind it was put into liquidation in May. In spite of that, he says earthworks for the town centre here at Oranga, including a supermarket and healthcare centre, start in February, and the complex should be completed by 2027.
The way I see Oranga, it was sort of like a bang-up houses quick sort of an area.
I'm with Steve O'Connor at his home, tucked in behind some glass houses that he leases to flower growers. He's all for progress, but says some developers work better with the community than others.
Whereas Kiwi Properties, they've consulted with us, because I'm on the Drury Community Committee. They come to our meetings. We've even got a public relations guy that works for Kiwi Properties, Rod Cunningham, and he comes to our meetings. He's also on the board with us. And there's no surprises. And they even asked us, what do we want in this new city that's coming? And I'd say, people say, oh, poo-hoo, it's not going to happen. I said, it does happen. If you want pickleball courts, put it down. Or a swimming pool or tennis courts or whatever is your interest. They want to please the public.
Okay, so because the reality is a city is coming here.
It's coming, and we can't stop it. And you look at the location; it is perfect. You know, if you even like, one of the reasons I live here because I used to have shares in racehorses, skiing. That's all south of Auckland, and so when I get home, I just get off the motorway, ram, and I'm home. Everyone else has got another hour to go. And same with trucking firms, they leave at 3 a.m. to get through the traffic, to get out south between Hamilton and Tauranga and Auckland. There's a triangle of industry. And I know there's stuff happening up north, but not the way it is down south. So,
what do you make of, there seems to be some tension between developers and the council about how much the developers should contribute and whether the council should be putting more money into it?
Well, yeah, I guess in the old times, the council did everything and the developer just made money. And now the council, obviously, it's like the government we've got at the moment. It's fantastic in my eyes because they've stopped and just said, let's rethink. We can't keep on going broke as the way we were. And the council's the same. We've got to start making people pay for what they get. And I know it's going to transfer into higher houses because it's you're paying a green fee to the council to have a house, which has gone from about 15 to 80,000, but that's just part of the cost.
Back in the car with Andy, we've come over the hill to Drury South Crossing, right beside the motorway.
All this work here is what's coming.
Coming down the hill now,
Yep.
and we're looking at this kind of a valley, I suppose. What did you call it, a valley?
Yeah.
Or land that's been flattened,
Yep.
and now it's got huge industrial sheds
Yeah.
and new roads being built.
Used to be a farm.
bulldozers. And the reason they want to be here is because Drury is at a very important point in that magic triangle
Yeah,
of Hamilton,
absolutely.
Tauranga and Auckland.
Yeah, there's some very, very interesting businesses in here. There's a Chinese pet food company. They came into town, they bought a couple of New Zealand pet food companies existing,
Yeah.
and they have opened a factory down here that will operate 24 hours, 5 days a week, doing cans of wet pet food of New Zealand beef and lamb, and exporting the whole lot to China. Here it is here, Zeal.
So what I'm hearing from you in this short drive around Drury is that this land is hugely valuable and in demand for so many reasons.
Yeah.
But does it need to be better controlled, the development and the progress here?
I think the timing is really critical, and it's critical because council and government are big contributors to the enabling and the facilitating of development, and so it's not right for us to skimp and to do things on the cheap.
Like what kind of things are you talking about?
Well, I don't, and this is no commentary on the likes of some of the big box retail shopping malls and developments that have occurred. And so, if you look at Westgate, say, so it's a great place, it's got great businesses, but it's not something you can hang your hat on and say, boy, that's just absolute quality. And
So you don't want a Westgate.
we don't want a Westgate.
What else don't you want?
I suppose from an employment perspective, we don't want a continuation of what exists in South Auckland now, which is a whole lot of low-paying jobs. We want jobs that people can aspire to. They can earn really good money, create really good careers. We've got to make sure that we get all that, that we're not just building, houses for first home buyers. We've got to have a balance of what's on offer.
And do you feel you're achieving that vision?
Out of our control a little bit, but if you believe what the developers are saying, and so Kiwi Property have talked a lot about the quality of what they're going to build in Drury. The proof will be in the final result.
And it's not too late, Andy. You don't feel like it's all been left too late to get this right?
No, I don't. And the Southern Rural Strategies is a good thing in terms of giving some guidance as to how and what we want to see done and when here in Drury and in Franklin. So it's not just about Drury. It's about Waiuku, it's about Pukikoe, it's about Clevedon, Beachlands, Maraetai, all those areas that we have that are seeing huge change.
That's it for today. As I get back on the motorway, The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. Thanks to Andy Baker, Steve O'Connor and Charles Marr. This episode was produced by Alexia Russell and engineered by Jeremy Ansell. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Ka kite.